Let's take a look. So, Turkey election, your guide to how the electoral system works. There are more than 64 million eligible voters in Turkey, including the close to 5 million first-time voters. Okay? More than 64 million people are eligible to vote in Turkey's presidential and parliamentary elections on May 14th, with Recep Tayyip Erdogan facing his toughest test in 20 years. Every 5 years, there's a parliamentary and a presidential election. So that's what's going on right now. Here's everything you need to know about how the electoral system works. So Turkey used to have a parliamentary system. They transitioned to a presidential system in July 2018, a month after Erdogan won the presidential election. How did they do that? Well, there was a martial law instituted in the immediate aftermath of the coup d'etat that had happened the year prior, and then there was a referendum vote held. Okay, the powers of the president were broadened after a 2017 referendum approving the change to an executive presidency. So just understand that. Originally, it was a parliamentary system, and the presidential, the role of the president was like non-existent. Basically, the president was a symbolic figurehead. He was like the guy that you send overseas, not the one who's like dealing with domestic and foreign policy directly. The party leader would be the one that head the parliament. It would be the person who was the actual person who was like in charge. Now, of course, like the prime minister was the one in charge, right? So that was also Erdogan at a certain point. So he swapped all of the powers of the presidency and then kept running the country. He was always running the AKP, the party that he's the leader of since AKP came to power. But he very openly was doing it now, right, as the president. The post of the prime minister was abolished, and the president also became the head of government. In the new system, voters elect the president directly. So how does the voting work in the Turkish elections? Turkey transition, we already mentioned that. They vote for a party and they vote for the president directly now. Citizens vote for party lists under proportional representation rather than the candidates. 600 members to be a part of the parliament. A party needs to gain 7% of the vote or be a part of an alliance that does. Okay? You first vote for the president and then you secondly vote for the party. Citizens vote for a candidate, and for the president to become the president, the vote needs at least 50% of the presidential votes are needed to secure the position. Erdogan fell short of the 50%. That's why there's going to be a runoff. Okay? Less than 50% of votes in a runoff between the two top scoring candidates will be had as well. At least 50% of presidential votes are needed to secure the position, and then less than 50% of votes result in a runoff between the two top scoring candidates. So it's going to be a runoff on the 28th. Okay? A second round of elections between Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, the leader of the opposition coalition, and Erdogan, who has his own little coalition as well. Okay? Now, everyone was incredibly confident, and I would say more confident than I have seen people on the ground leading up to this election that Erdogan was not going to win, and that Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu was actually going to win with a 51% majority vote. So elections are held every 5 years, like I said. The 2023 polls initially scheduled for June 18 were brought forward May 14th. So for the record, one other thing that I have to mention, by the way, is that polling results in Turkey are so fraudulent. Okay? I know this completely. Like, you look at like actual polls in Turkey, it's completely broken. Okay? It is a completely fraudulent industry, even more so than polling in America. Okay? And in those polls, it looked like, Kılıçdaroğlu was fucking slapping ass cheeks, crushing ass. Erdogan's own poll showed Erdogan crushing ass cheeks and slapping ass. Turns out the truth was somewhere in the middle, but like with Erdogan crushing more ass cheeks than Kılıçdaroğlu's coalition. Okay? Who can run for president? A potential candidate must be a Turkish citizen, at least 40 years old, and have a bachelor's degree. Candidates are nominated by parties that received at least 5% of votes in the previous parliamentary polls or have 20 seats in parliament. A presidential hopeful could also seek a nomination by collecting 100,000 signatures of support from citizens. How does a presidential candidate win? A candidate needs more than 50% of votes in the first round to win outright. If no one crosses it, the top two candidates will go head-to-head in a runoff 2 weeks later. This year's vote is set for May 28th. How do parliamentary elections work? I don't know how Erdogan's degree situation works. I think does he have a bachelor's degree? I don't know. Anyway. Bunu neden okuyorsun ki hem diploması yok hem üçüncü kez aday oluyor. Anayasa umurunda değil. Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. Erdogan can do whatever the fuck he wants. Okay. So, how do the parliamentary elections work? The current parliament has 600 seats. Turks vote for a party list as opposed to the candidates. To enter a parliament, a party needs 7% of the vote. Or to be an alliance that does, voters will choose a new parliament president on May 14th. They did, and Erdogan actually slapped ass cheeks there too. This is what the alliance looked like before this election cycle. The People's Alliance, AKP. Why the fuck is Al Jazeera writing AK Party? This is a small but I guess significant point of contention. AK Party means pure party. Okay, that's how they branded themselves. It's supposed to be AKP, but they called themselves AK Party. So you can kind of tell if someone is in support of AKP by the way that they describe the party. And if they say AK Party, that's like they're kind of, they must be a fan. Okay. Anyway, you have the Labor and Freedom Alliance, HDP, TIP, the Communists and the Kurds. You have the coalition, the opposition coalition, which is İYİ, which is a cutout from MHP. DP, DEVA, SP, and CHP is like the main one, the Social Democratic Party. And then you have some others. Elections for the 600 members of the National Assembly, as the Turkish parliament is known, are carried out through a system of proportional representation. So Turks vote for party lists rather than the candidates, and the seat members correspond to votes cast per party rather than alliances. Okay? The 600 members represent 87 electoral districts in 81 provinces. Electoral districts are allocated parliamentary seats in proportion to their population. To enter parliament, a party needs to get 7% of the vote or be part of an alliance that does. Candidates must be at least 18 years old. To obtain a parliamentary majority, a party or alliance must hold more than half or 301 of these seats. The current parliament before the election was 285 seats. The far-right ultra-nationalist MHP, Milliyetçi Hareket Partisi, the Hareket Party, nationalist movement, the ones that NATO, beefed up and put in power, who was doing far-right terror in the country back in the day during the Cold War. They have 48. They are a major, they are the largest ally to Erdogan's Adalet ve Kalkınma Partisi, which is the Justice and Development Party. And then the main opposition, center-left Cumhuriyet Halk Parti, which is the Republican People's Party, the Social Democratic one, has 134 MPs. And the center-right ally, İYİ Parti, which is a cutout from the MHP originally, has 36. And the pro-Kurdish Halkların Demokratik Parti, the People's Democratic Party, HDP, which also happens to be my initials as well, has 56 lawmakers. So in April 2022, the election threshold was reduced from 10% to 7%. A law changed the way seats are distributed among members of the party alliance. Parliamentary seats were previously allocated according to total votes received by an alliance. Now the seats will be allocated according to the votes that a party receives individually. Alliances are therefore used so that parties can surpass the election threshold. This also pits parties within an alliance against one another. A lot of this stuff is pretty basic in a multi-party system. America is a two-party system with like some other parties on the side, but they're like laughed out of the room for the most part. But the reason why there's this is what happens. Like, it's supposed to be more representational. It's supposed to give you like a diversity of ideas. Obviously, there's still different ways of coalition forming and numerous different ways of basically creating opportunities for gridlock. Voting for Erdogan can also be described as working for a minimum wage, but act delighted when seeing a TOG, a brand new Turkish electric car, for the record. It is an EV. Forgetting the fact that you won't be able to buy even his tires, and it wouldn't do any effect to your economic situation rather than making you feel even poorer. Pretty much. I think there's also one other component to this that like a lot of people in the West don't know about, and even people in Turkey will probably regard in a more reactionary perspective, which is that Erdogan juices the fucking country. He steals a lot of money, but he also gives a lot of cash to underdeveloped parts of the country. He doesn't actually engage in like even development in the same way that like Xi Jinping does, for example. He just does. He gives them a lot of cash, though. There is a dramatic amount of there is a tremendous amount of welfare, but also on top of that, there is very uneven development, but also not great development in areas that are in desperate need of development, but ones that are basically aesthetic. The example I can show you is basically, for example, taking the fucking earthquake funds and like building roads that got eviscerated by the earthquake, right?
Hey everyone, it's me, the editor again. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please throw some Kaya loves in the comments, and it's always nice to know when people reach this segment. To get more Hasan content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and hey, leave a like while you're at it. And if you'd like to see another video just like this one, why not check this one out?